Hey there, YouTube. Welcome to the AEW Dynamite review for November the 2nd, 2022. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this one. I'm not sure exactly what to call the episode I just watched. It wasn't a bad episode, but it's almost, I guess the subheading I would give it is cruise control, because it very much felt like cruise control in the way a lot of the elements were approached to it. As usual, there are a couple of pieces that I liked, a couple of small things that hopefully we won't have to harp on every single week, but I've had to the last, while that I've been doing some of these reviews, but hopefully it means we've turned the corner on that. So like I saw some encouraging signs, but then I saw other things that were just kind of more perplexing than anything else. It just felt like we were just biding our time here trying to move towards a full gear. Now the good news, and I'm going to mention it again later on, is that with full gear we've got 17 days to work on this build. So we've still got enough time that we can definitely build it as far as the next several episodes are concerned. But some of the stuff feels a little bit ham-fisted in how we arrive there, and I'll go through some of that as I get through the review. But there are some pieces that definitely don't quite fit together as neatly as you would like it to. And I'll discuss that kind of as we get into it. So without further ado, the review starts with Darby Allin and Jay Lethal. First match out of the block. Good match on paper. It's one of those things where I don't worry about match quality a lot of times in AEW, unless there's something egregious or something really shockingly great. It's one of those things where the match quality tends to be pretty good, but sometimes it's a little bit, you're trying to put too much in there just for the hell of it, just to get a match that is intriguing, but at the same time doesn't lead to anything. This has been a continuation of a few of these guys have had, which, again, another solid match between the two overall. But it ends with a lethal injection after a masked person in Sting costume attacks Darby. So it's one of those things where the post match is really more important than the match itself than how we got there. But anyway, so the rest of it becomes a little bit odd, and I'll get into that. So the beatdown begins, Sting's music plays, and Jeff Jarrett ends up attacking Darby Allin and starts a rant against AEW fans, citing his family history and declaring war on AEW. So in 2022 we have Jeff Jarrett. So here we are. He mentioned how many times he's a world champion. He mentioned how many times he's a Hall of Famer, and we got the choke on that slapnuts. So 2022 we've got choke on that slapnuts, guitar wielding Jeff Jarrett, who, by the way, to be fair, has been working out arms pretty good because he looked to be in pretty good shape in terms of the guns. So I'll give him credit for that. But overall, I'm like, I did not need to see Jeff Jarrett on my screen in 2022, and I don't exactly understand what the association is, but fine, whatever. It gives Sanjay Dutt and Singh and Jay Lethal, I guess, something to do with. I guess they're associated with Jeff Jarrett. I don't understand any of it. I'm going to move on. Whatever. And there's also the guy from the factory whose name I already forgot. I'm sorry. My apologies. I wanted to jot down that note, but I forgot. And he was the one in the Sting costume. And I guess they're a faction now because we need more factions in AEW. So enjoy that. Anyway, John Moxley promo. Good stuff in that regard. Again, good solid John Moxley promo building up the Lee Moriarty match. Then we get an Elite related promo. So we get a continuation of this thing with Elite promo. So it's interesting. And in this case, it was the Trios Championship win that was removed. So it was kind of deleted by somebody playing around with a version of a video editor, not unlike the one I'm going to use to, set up this video / audio going on. And then they moved to the Trios match that Death Triangle won. And then the Elite were being Thanos away again, similar to the last time around. So it's a continuation of this for the second week, hopefully leading to something. So another use of a video package. And there was another video package later on in this one that was kind of interesting. So I'm fine with AEW using video packages to set something up. And it looks like the Elite are going to be coming back sooner rather than later. Could be as soon as Full Gear, could be before that, could be after that. Hard to say. I'm guessing Full Gear is probably the spot where you're going to see something, but we'll see how that goes. Either way, I'm content with using the video packages to this effect to kind of keep that, storyline progressing, at least from that perspective. One thing that I'll hope is that at some point we'll also get a little bit of an idea, like who's producing these, like to what end, what's the context behind the whole, Thanosing of the Elite as far as these promo packages are concerned. So all that would be something I'm hoping we'll get as part of whatever storyline this is supposed to be. And then right after that, in the very next thing after the commercial break, we get John Moxley and Lee Moriarty as the AEW Championship Eliminator. Okay, so first thing off the bat. Why are we still doing championship eliminator matches? I hate them. I don't care who's doing them. I don't like the idea of an eliminator actually involving the champion, because in order to do that, and I talked about this already in a previous review, in order to do that, you have the champion have to lose in order to get a match against the champion, which is redundant. It's silly. It's dumb. But whatever. Match was fine. And also I was also in my next note was, why is the second? It's before the ROH title match, before the ROH TV match, and I'll come back to that. I will come back to that point. Anyway, during this match, Lamar Jackson showed up they were in Baltimore, so he showed up, and then he got chance of MVP. Great. John Moxley wins by submission. Again, decent match. And Lee Moriarty got to have a little bit, although some of the offense looks a little bit soft. I'd like to see him, lay it in a little bit more, especially with a guy like Moxley, who certainly likes that style. So you can lay it in a little bit more and make it look a little better. But, good showing by Lee Moriarty, all things considered, considering he's not on TV all the time. So it's fine. But then, Ethan Page gets in the ring, boots Moxley, and then they get a little bit of a beatdown with the firm. So that's fine, but it's kind of a continuation of the idea that Ethan Page wants the AEW championship. He wants to get in there. Again, Ethan Page to me is a really prime candidate potentially for the TNT championship. He'd be the kind of guy, or the All Atlantic championship, which was referenced, which I wouldn't mind seeing that. Ethan Page is the All Atlantic champion. I think would be great. So it's one of those things where like, I feel like you're slotting somebody, and this is going to come up again in a little bit. I don't like the idea of positioning somebody who would be great in a certain spot in a different spot where you're just going to have them lose, or maybe you're going to have them lose, and it just doesn't set them up well. And I'm not a fan of that, because you got to have a thing where you build somebody up, and maybe this isn't their time, but you can't have too many aborted attempts. So you got to be really careful with how you use them. You only got so many bullets in the chamber. When the moment is right, you got to be ready to pull the trigger and actually make it happen. Anyway, next that comes up is the sit down with Renee and Britt Baker and Saraya. It was going to be a pre-tape, so Britt Baker didn't show up. It ended up with Saraya going over pieces of her life story and talking about why she came to AEW. And then Renee asked the question about if she can go in the ring, if she's medically cleared. Saraya defers to that and says she wants to see one more doctor, quote unquote. So basically, it's an easy setup for a confrontation with Britt Baker, either on Rampage, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes, or at a next Dynamite or upcoming here before Full Gear in some way. So I'm guessing this will lead into Full Gear. Again, we've got 17 days, so we'll see how that plays out. But it's kind of an easy setup to bring up another doctor, quote unquote, given the DMD counts as a doctor. So not the cleanest setup for next week, a bit obvious. Now, one thing that I will praise them for, and I'm hoping, I'm praying, I'm crossing my fingers here, that hopefully this means we've turned a corner with the formatting of the show in certain elements. Again, not all the elements. There's some elements I've still got concerns about. But hopefully this means we're turning a corner in terms of the formatting so that this becomes more the rule rather than the exception. Because what happened with this, which is good, is we got the segment with Saraya and Renee. Great. It allowed Saraya to talk a little bit. It allowed her to establish elements. Even though we didn't get a lot of stuff out of it, it was still very light. It was still separate from what would come after. So it was one segment, and then we'll come back to it in a second here. But it's a good first step. Just the fact that we have a separation between this and other women's segments on this show is wonderful. Already great. I'm a huge fan. Great. So next comes up a William Regal promo. It was kind of a nothing promo. It's just quickly to set up something and kind of make an allusion to. One thing I did like was that he made an allusion to MJF needing to learn how to become a true villain. So if your theory is that William Regal maybe joins MJF and they do a thing, that that's a little Easter egg if you want to. That's a little breadcrumb if you end up following, and that's the direction we end up going. Next is the Acclaim joining Billy Gunn for the birthday celebration. They do a bunch of presents. They, again, the crowd likes the Acclaim, but it's one of those things where, like, for me, it's a little bit dragged out, but it was fine. It gave him an excuse to show new foam fingers as kind of a way of him getting around the fact he got his fingers broken by Swerve or whatever that was supposed to be the previous week. A reference to DX, you got that. Then the Gun Club interrupts, and Morrissey attacks Billy Gunn and the Acclaim, kind of setting up, the Gun Club having a problem with the Acclaim. Then FTR runs in to continue the feud with the Guns. So we've got a little bit of tag team dissension going on with these different teams, and this will come up again as well. A lot of this is very transparent and very surface level. A little basic, but it's fine. Then after this, we get a promo with Britt Baker talking to Tony Schiavone. So this kind of plays into the idea that she no-showed the first one, kind of alluded to the conspiracies and said she's going to do it on her timetable, and she wants to do it with Schiavone, who's more of a friendly party for Britt Baker, and that kind of continues that whole line of story that they've had, which I think is good. It's actually good that Britt Baker at least has someone that she's at least on modestly friendly terms with, so that's good, and it's a continuation of that. And she joined with Jamie Hayter, and they end up in their terms of their discussion. It's very brief, but at least it's a separate segment, like I said, and it sets up them wanting to have a tag team match on Rampage, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But they separated the two segments, which is great. And both of them got to say something, and at least it led to something. That's fine. Next here, Chris Jericho versus the mystery Ring of Honor opponent for the ROH Championship. Remember, the AEW Championship was not defended, but we had an eliminator match for the second match of the show. And now we've got the ROH match for the ROH Championship here in this section. Again, this is not a main event. And again, it made me concerned as we got further along in the show. But anyway, so Chris Jericho calls out Lamar Jackson. They have this whole thing. He does a quick promo, and then it leads to him saying, okay, let's bring out the open challenger. And it ends up being Colt Cabana, who's very emotional coming out. Big deal because of the post-CM Punk thing. So I didn't think we'd see Colt Cabana on an AEW show. So it's fine. Cabana wrestled a more aggressive, serious style compared to his norm. So it kind of played into the idea that, hey, this is an opportunity for him. He's here, and he's kind of taking it seriously. And at the same time, he's happy to be in that situation. So they have a spot there at one point where it looks like Colt Cabana dropped Jericho. So he was on the top rope or on the middle rope with his feet, and then it looked like he was going to do something, and then it looked like he kind of dropped Jericho and then kind of fell off himself. It was very sloppy, a little bit weird in the way it happened, where he lost his balance or he lost grip or something happened there. Anyway, Chris Jericho ends up winning. He goes up the ramp. He's about to attack the commentator from ROH that's there. He is saved by Claudio. Claudio's overwhelmed by the JAS, and then Wheeler Yuta comes in for the save. So you're noticing a bit of a recurring pattern with a lot of these. It's a bit repetitive, so you got to be careful of overdoing the same patterns over and over again. So the faction feud continues. JAS versus the Blackpool Combat Club. Like, it's a bit worn out. I'm hoping we can advance past this point to something else, but here we are. And I think eventually it's Claudio and Jericho again for the ROH Championship. But again, it's another ROH thing in the middle of the show. Like, ROH is taking up way too much time on this show for my taste. And also, you put the ROH Championship at this section of the show, and then you're going to have more ROH content to come later. Not a big fan of that, but fine. Let's move on. Next, Death Triangle promo. Rey Fenix is aiming to win the All-Atlantic Championship in the Triple Threat. Pac is tempting him with the hammer, the opportunity to cheat a little bit, so he kind of tempts him with it. Luchasaurus taking on Rey Fenix versus Orange Cassidy, so we immediately go into the match right after that for the All-Atlantic Championship. It also has a contract where the winner can choose their dream opponent. I don't know why that exists, but fine. Luchasaurus goes up the ramp at one point, and he's attacked by Jumbo with a chair and then driven through the table off the stage with a crossbody. So that kind of takes Luchasaurus out of the equation. So that leaves Fenix and Cassidy. And then Pac hands Fenix the hammer, and Rey rejects it. And then he has one more offensive flurry and gets hit with the orange punch in midair. Cassidy retains. By the way, this is a triple threat, or a three-way match, or whatever AEW calls it. The point is, it's no disqualification. You can literally attack people. You can have people attack on your behalf. Jungle Boy literally took out Luchasaurus. That's fine. The hammer is perfectly 100% legal. Rey Fenix is actually an idiot for not using it. I understand the storyline that Rey Fenix wants to do it fair and square, whatever, but it's a no disqualification match. You can attack the man with the weapon. It's perfectly legal. It is completely, you can do it in front of the referee's face, and it's perfectly fine. Whatever, fine. Anyway, so Orange Cassidy retains. Pac attacks Cassidy post-match, and then Shibata comes out to the ramp, so we bring in another New Japan person, joined by the Best Friends to make the save, while Pac... Now this I didn't like. So Shibata comes out to the ramp, right, to get the reaction. And again, if you don't know New Japan, you're not going to know Shibata. I know a little bit about Shibata, but I'm not super familiar. Like, it's not the first person I'm going to think of. So I'm not going to react super strong to it, even though I have at least a little bit of understanding of New Japan. But the point is that, so he comes out to get the reaction. Again, the reaction was okay. It was there. But at the same time, he's literally standing there waiting for kind of Best Friends to join him. And during this whole time, Pac is like staring at him instead of attacking Orange Cassidy. That's kind of a logic flaw that I don't like, because Shibata doesn't actually come down the ramp for a moment there. There's enough time for him to attack Cassidy and still leave the ring. So it's one of those things, like, there was enough time to do damage and leave. And that's kind of the note I made. Shibata grabs a contract to face Cassidy on Rampage. So there you go. There's your next match. Next segment here is another promo, and it's Swerve in Our Glory and Rick Ross, because reasons. So we continue the dissension storyline with Keith Lee not being super happy about the way that Swerve is going about his business, but he's got Rick Ross there trying to keep it all positive, and kind of as a make good, he sets up an 8-man tag, which is going to be, Swerve in Our Glory and the Gun Club versus FTR and Acclaimed. So we're going to get an 8-man tag, which is fine, great, but it's kind of shoehorned in there again, fine. Okay, next up is the token women's match on the card. It is Marina Shafir taking on Jade Cargill for the TBS Championship. So, my literal next note is, on the upside, the title is on TV, question mark, sort of, except Jade doesn't have the title, because I remind you that Nyla Rose stole it, and apparently can continue to steal it. And this segment, I'll be honest, I have explained already in a couple of these reviews, I love the Nyla Rose thing with this segment, with the TBS Championship, and the thing with Jade, and Nyla Rose annoying Jade at every turn. I have loved this. This one left me cold. This one was not their best stuff. And a couple of reasons for it. Like I said, the reason I wrote on the upside the title was on TV is because Marina Shafir, and I cannot put my finger on it, and I do not understand it, and I have no way of explaining it to you, other than Marina Shafir looks the part. She has a judo background. Like, she has actually participated in combat sports. She's done some MMA training. Like, she has some legitimacy. But all she's really good at doing is mean mugging and looking awkward in the ring. And it's not that she's not an athlete. Like, she clearly looks like, she clearly works out. She's married, I think she's married to Roderick Strong. So, like, it's not like she's not familiar with professional wrestling. She spent years in the WWE system. She's married to a great wrestler. it just isn't translating, and I can't explain it. Like, somehow she's in the ring with legitimate combat sports credentials and presumably the ability to transfer some of them, but none of it transfers. Literally none of it. She looks completely unathletic and stiff in the ring. All the offense looks awkward and weird and like, stop and start kind of offense. And even when the moment comes to like do some of the character elements of it, the facial expressions, there's nothing. Like, literally, she looks like nothing is happening, good, bad, or indifferent. She's just kind of there. No element of it works, and it's just bizarre. And it's, again, I've definitely seen worse wrestlers. There's no doubt. Like, I've definitely seen worse. But she's not good. And it's one of those things where it's like, this is an unfortunate thing because she is the one paired up with Nyla Rose, which I actually don't mind them as a tandem, as a pairing. But as a one-on-one competitor, I'm just not buying Marina Shafir. It doesn't fit here. It doesn't work. And she's supposed to be the one. And even during this, trying to make something out of it, they have Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero come out almost near the beginning of the match to do commentary. So they're literally talking over the match, which again, at this point, the match is a foregone conclusion. It's not even worth watching. It's not even worth describing to you what happens in the match because it's terrible. But then on top of it, even this piece, which could be funny under the right circumstances, is not funny. And I like Nyla Rose's stuff generally, and I like her humor in a lot of these cases, but this one just left me cold. Vicky Guerrero is really annoying, not in a good way. And it's one of those things, but it also kind of reiterates, she's literally there parading around with the title, and Tony Khan is powerless to stop Nyla Rose from parading around with the title that she stole. And, the thievery continues. Fine, whatever. Anyway, Jade wins with Jaded. Her winning streak continues, blah, blah, blah. Kiera Hogan tries to steal back the TBS Championship and then gets clocked by Nyla Rose, who escapes again with the title because Nyla Rose cannot be caught because she is a master thief. So there you go. Moving on. So next up is actually one of the more intriguing pieces. I mentioned the whole thing about the Elite and the Thanosing video package. This was actually a House of Black video promo. Kind of a bit weird. It's one of the things where they do a ton of imagery and a lot of weird stuff all over the place. Julia Hart was featured in it quite a bit, so good for her. I'm happy to see that. But at the same time, I don't know exactly where it's going with it. It seems to imply that Malachi Black is returning. Hopefully that's the case. And I know that Malachi Black, from everything I've seen and heard, obviously wasn't too happy with certain things going on. If he's in a better frame of mind and is willing to come in, and also, more importantly, if Tony Khan has something for them to do, this is critically important. If they're going to do this, then for goodness sake, you're going to do this video package, whatever, and you're going to imply this, you better have something specific for them to do. As a faction, I think the House of Black could be really good. I love to see some more Buddy Matthews. I'd love to see some Malachi Black. But I was actually completely okay with the idea of just doing Brody King and Julia Hart for a while, and that would have been fine with me. But if you're going to do it and bring either of those guys back or both or whatever, then have something for them to do. If you've got something for them to do, I'm interested. If you want to do some video packages to lead into that, that's fine. I'm still not a fan of like the whole spooky supernatural crap. I don't like it with Bray Wyatt. I don't like it with this. But if that's what they're into, fine. But you have to commit to it. You can't just half-ass this. You either got to do it or not do it. I'm intrigued from the perspective of I thought the promo was well done. I'm still not convinced it's going to lead to anything, and that's what concerns me. That's what I worry about. Anyway, moving on from that, another promo for Rampage, which includes the usual fixins, and we talk about a lot of things. They did the promo for the Rampage matches. It includes Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter versus Madison Rayne and Sky Blue. That's the tag team that you end up doing. So apparently AEW has one tag team they'll throw together. You could just get Diamante and somebody. Like, you literally could just find somebody and make a tag team out of it. Fine, whatever. But we get Madison Rayne and Sky Blue, who have been tagging, so they've at least done some tag team matches, so fine, great. Not terrible, but like, it just seems random, but fine. Then right after this, they do a promo here for the AEW Women's Interim World Championship, so they basically give you the match that's going to be a Full Gear. And the Full Gear match is going to be Jamie Hayter taking on Toni Storm for that AEW Interim Women's Championship. And for God's sake, Tony Khan, drop the interim. Just make Toni Storm the champion, please, for the love of all that is holy. Just make her the champion. Thunder Rosa is going to be away at least probably till the end of the year, early next year. So just make her the full champion and just have her defend the championship and be done with it. Now, my concern is this. I like the idea, but it feels shoehorned together, and the crowd still likes Jamie Hayter. And the problem is you haven't separated her out from Britt Baker. So you've got this whole thing going on. But the problem is now you're throwing it into a match. I don't want to see Jamie Hayter drop another match like this, but I don't think she's going to win. Like, it would make no sense. Maybe you're going to surprise me and she'll win. And maybe that leads to the dissension with Britt Baker and that leads to the breakup, whatever, jealousy. I could get behind that. But I'm concerned because Toni Storm has actually been able to defend that championship a bit, which has been good. But if you're going to do that, I really want you to drop the interim, prefix to this whole thing. Just drop it. Just call it the AEW Women's Championship and be done with it. And again, I'm concerned that, that's just leaving Jamie Hayter out in the cold. And what they did, which was interesting but also bizarre, is they announced it, and then they did the bit where they actually did a little backstory about Toni Storm and Jamie Hayter, who apparently lived together during the pandemic. So they're trying to establish this kind of background, this former friendship gone sour, that she's aligned with Britt Baker, blah, 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 which is weird, but okay, we'll go with it. It's fine, but it's too quick. If you had started this a little while ago and we could establish that as some kind of a rivalry leading into this match, great. 17 days from the pay-per-view, you better come up with something damn good to fill in some of the blanks, because we have to get from point A to point Z here in a very short period of time. We don't have that much airtime, and I'm not sure Tony Khan is committed to actually showing enough to actually do it. I'm glad they actually got Toni Storm to actually speak and Jamie Hayter to actually speak and say something in this little promo segment they put together. By the way, use more of these video promos if you want to do it this way. I'm good with that. I'm cool with it. But I'm concerned you just, oh crap, homework's due. I've got to do something. So here's a video package. That's what concerns me. That's what I'm worried about. So we'll see. And again, I don't see Jamie Hayter coming out of that match as the winner. And that's another loss on her record for no reason, especially when there was no rush to do it right this moment, unless you have plans for Jamie Hayter going forward. So we'll see. Because like I said, the crowd is still in Jamie Hayter, and you're slowly stomping down that reaction over time the more time you tease this and don't execute. I was still in the camp that Jamie Hayter would be a prime candidate for the TBS Championship to actually give her a title and a title run. But we'll see. I guess we're going to have to see what happens with that. Now, you may be wondering why I spent that much time talking about that. Because the next thing on the docket is Brian Cage versus Samoa Joe for the ROH Television Championship, which is your main event. My very next line here is, how on earth is this the main event? Question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point, question mark. I don't understand. The match is fine. It's kind of another kind of Haas fight style, which is conceptually fine. And then Samoa Joe wins by submission, the Embassy attacks, and Wardlow makes a save. Wardlow reunited. And then Powerhouse Hobbs attacks Wardlow and holds the TNT Championship to go off air. This in and of itself is not a bad segment. But this is not the main event segment. The Ring of Honor Television Championship should not be your main event on an episode of Dynamite. What on earth is... You had the ROH Championship on this show. You had the AEW Championship on this show. You had the TBS Championship on this show. Why? You even had the All-Atlantic Championship, if you really want to stretch this. You have AEW titles that were on this show being defended in a three-way match as well. Like, it was a better match. So you did all this, and you put the ROH Television Championship in the main event slot. Now, let me be clear. I like Brian Cage. He hasn't been used to his full potential in the way AEW's used him. Fine. I love Samoa Joe. Again, not used to full potential, but he's got this title, and I'm cool with it. I'm cool with you respecting him having this title. I like Wardlow. I like Powerhouse Hobbs. I don't mind the idea of Powerhouse Hobbs and Wardlow alluding to a collision course with those two. Hey, Hoss fight. Let's do it. I'm good with all of these components, but not in the main event segment. And it really feels like, who the hell programmed this show? I have to look at Tony Khan directly because he's the be-all and end-all as far as these decisions are being made. But man, this show formatting, man. There were elements that, like I said, I liked. Elements that I appreciated in the show. I appreciated that two of the women promos were separated out. Great. That was awesome. You used some pre-tape there to fill in some of the blanks. Cool. Jeff Jarrett, what the fuck? 2022, why am I seeing Jeff Jarrett? I don't understand. Sure, I guess. Reasons. Fine. But you started off the show with an ROH guy standing tall and Jeff Jarrett randomly coming in to declare war on AEW. I'm confused. Then you went into, you did the AEW Championship Eliminator. I hate the AEW Championship Eliminator thing. You threw some stuff in the middle that was just kind of there. You threw in the acclaimed, birthday celebration of Billy Gunn. Fine, that's just kind of filler. A bunch of promos. And then ROH versus, Chris Jericho versus a mystery opponent. So you got Colt Cabana in there for the ROH Championship. So that's another ROH thing. You got the All-Atlantic Championship. Then you've got a bunch of random promos, a Marina Shafir Jade Cargill match, which was terrible, even though the TBS Championship was on TV, so good for that. More promos, and then you basically lead into the ROH TV Championship main eventing. That is not a great structure for an episode. This was like, we're just coasting on this one. This was, like I said, at the beginning of the review. This felt like a cruise control episode. This felt like, all right, we're just, here's stuff. Good night, everybody. Okay, I guess. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna use my system of letter grades on this one. This one's a C- episode. You didn't even have MJF on the show. You didn't even have a pre-tape with MJF on the show. Obviously, he was beat up after last episode, so fine, I get that. But some kind of an update on MJF, like something. You did have William Regal making allusion to him, so that's fine. You had the AEW champion on there, so I can't complain that he wasn't on the show. You had the AEW Women's Championship in a pre-tape, which is fine. At least she was on the show. You had the TBS Championship on there, which is fine. She was at least on the show in a match. And the TNT champion was there. So it's not like the champions weren't there. So that was good. But at the same time, it still felt like a disjointed show. It felt like your A show was literally run like a B show. And I'm not sure why. I'm confused about it. It literally felt like you were just coasting for this episode just to get past it so you could get to the next couple of episodes to lead into Full Gear. That's what it felt like. It felt like we just need to kill 2 hours here. Let's just get this out of the way, and then we'll figure out the rest going from here. So not the best effort. A C- effort, I think, from my perspective. That's kind of what way I look at it. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Curious to get your thoughts if you want in the comments section. Curious, how did you feel about this episode? Did any of it work for you? Some elements, like I said, did work for me. Some elements of it, I'm intrigued. I'd like to see more. And some elements of it, I was genuinely perplexed. I wasn't a big fan of the way they structured certain parts, or basically what ended up happening with it, or where we're going with some of these quote unquote storylines in some of this stuff. But again, I've definitely seen worse, but certainly not their best effort. Aside from that, more videos and reviews coming up on the channel as I put them together on this channel. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate the support in that regard. Thanks very much. We'll catch you in the next one.